Hello, Rod here again. Welcome to our story for Wednesday of Holy Week. Today our story is about Andrew, very well known person in the Bible and patron saint of Scotland. This story takes place some years after Jesus' crucifixion, when Andrew was in Greece. I've told you time and time again, it's not about power. Well, not about the power you're talking about, not about the army, the navy, the way the rich lord it over the poor, the way the landowners exploit the slaves and various other people, the way the business people use power. No. Keep talking like that and it's going to cause trouble. In fact, keep talking like that and you're going totally against what I've ever told you. You still don't understand. Oh, well, I suppose that's usual. My brother Peter, he never really understood either until it stared him in the face, and then he absolutely realised. But that's another story. I'm going to have to tell you all over again, aren't I? Try and get it across to you this one last time. And yes, you've probably heard a lot of it before, but this time, will you please listen? It didn't even begin with him. No. I was quite happy. I was working, fisherman, that was the family business. But there was always something more. I always felt, well, I was missing something, but I didn't quite know what it was. And then I heard about him. John the Baptizer. Yeah, John the troublemaker. Yes, out there by the Jordan, baptizing, dressed in camel skin coat and eating locusts and honey. The perfect wild man. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to really hear him. I'd heard so many stories, so I went. Now, my brother Simon, Peter, as you know him as, he was not very happy about that. I suppose fair enough. When I wasn't there, I wasn't helping the family business, I wasn't fishing, I wasn't working, I wasn't helping to support everybody. But I just felt there was more important things and I needed to find out. So I went. Wow. What a sight. You'd think in the wilderness you wouldn't see many people. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds down there by the Jordan. And there in the middle of the water was John. One by one, people were coming out, and he was saying something to them and thrusting them under the water. Sometimes I thought, is he going to let them out again? But he did. And then he started talking again, trying to catch the ears of the newcomers like myself. And what he was talking about: repent, change your lives, turn back to God. An interesting term, back to God. And don't forget, we were supposed to be a devout nation. Turn back to God, be baptized, and wait for the one who is coming. Well, that interested me straight away. I wanted to be baptized, and I was, but I didn't just want to be baptized. I wanted to find out more what he was on about. So I decided to follow him. Couldn't follow him all the time, of course. No, that would have been too much for Simon and the rest. I needed to keep going back, but only occasionally. I loved my time with John. I learned so much. And what I'd learnt about also was people, the number of people who were searching for something different. The number of people who were tired with society of the time, that felt like me, that they were missing something, but they didn't quite know what it was. And it was wonderful to see them going down into the water, being baptized by John and coming out with a look on their face Yes, climbing, dripping out of the water, but lucky as if they'd found something at last, and they were on some sort of journey. Then one day I remember this very, very well. Some of the high-ups, should I say, from the temple came down, and some of the scribes and the Pharisees, and they really challenged John. Who exactly are you? They said. We've heard so many stories about you. We've heard the crowd saying you're Elijah come back from the dead. You're this prophet or that prophet. You're the one that's been foretold. You're even the one. But at that moment when they said you're even the one, John looked at them straight. No, he said, I am not the one. I'm the forerunner. I'm the one they talked about back in Scripture. I'm the one preparing the way for the Lord. Yeah, me. Yes, I know. You'd expect that in the temple, wouldn't you? You expect that in the synagogues. You expect that in the palaces. You would not expect to hear that down by the River Jordan. But I am. And I tell you one thing, the one is coming. In fact, he's amongst us now, even though you don't recognize him. And when he comes and when he starts talking, well, he's going to change things. You really don't want to know what he's going to do. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm not even fit to get down and fasten the laces on his sandals. No, I'm not. Well, the crowd listened to this. And have you ever seen those who normally look down their noses at people, those who think they're a step above everybody, those who have the power that you're talking about, the power that I want you to change your mind about? Have you ever seen them scuttling away like frightened kittens and gaggling and jabbering away that they're going to report him? He can't be saying that. It's an awful thing to say. Terrible. What an insult. We're going to report you. I wondered who they're going to report him to. There was nobody really. But I listened to John and I learned a lot. And that stuck in my mind what he just said. And then one day, when the crowds were there, John suddenly looked at me and said, see him over there? That's the one. That's the one you're waiting for. Well, I looked across. There was one of the other disciples of John standing next to me. I forget his name now, it's awful, there were so many of us. Come on, said John, follow him. Come on, follow him. My time's done. You follow him. So we did. We followed him. We lost him a couple of times in the crowd, but then we managed to get out behind him on the road. Part of me wanted to hang back. Part of me wanted to rush up to her and say, are you the one? John says you're the one. But I didn't. Neither of us did. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to say. And then he turned round. What do you want? He said to us. But it wasn't accusatory. Oh, no, it was sort of inviting, really. And then I did a touch of my brother Simon. We want to know where you live, I said. What an idiot. We want to know where you live. But he smiled and said, come on then, I'll show you. Come with me. So we did. We went with him. And I don't really remember what happened that night. I don't remember anything of sitting down with him and listening to what he said. Something was going on in my life, I have no idea, but the next thing I remember clearly, I was running down the road, back to the lake, back to my brother, back to my boats. I just knew what had happened, but I didn't know how. Simon was waiting by the boat. He saw me coming. Where have you been? He said. We've been waiting for you for ages. Where have you been? You've not been with that wild man again, have you? No, I said, no. I've seen the Messiah. I've met him. I've talked with him. He's talked with me. He looked at me and gave me that look as if to say, oh dear. Oh, it's just gone too far this time. Wild man was bad enough, but now the idiot, he thinks he's met the Messiah. Now he's a big man, my brother. I didn't say anything. I grabbed him by the arm and I pulled him and I pushed him and I dragged him to see Jesus. As we were coming up to him, Simon was moaning and groaning. Is that him? Is that the one? That's the one. Jesus turned round. Before Simon could say anything, as we were approaching him, he said, oh, you're Simon. Simon looked. Never seen it before in my life. How does he know me? You're Simon, says Jesus. But I'm going to call you Peter. Jesus called my brother a name which in Greek means the rock. And the funny thing is, that name stuck. You know him as Peter. You don't think of him as Simon, do you? Peter the rock. The one that Jesus said later, on that rock I'm going to build my church. And the rest is history, really, I suppose. You've heard all the stories, haven't you? You've heard everything. I'm not going to repeat those. You've heard them so many times. We saw some wonderful things. We saw healing. We saw people who were on the outside being brought in, and Jesus showing by action and saying in words, you're not on your own. You're not a part of anything. You are a part of the kingdom. I saw him heal lepers. I saw him walk on water. I saw him heal blind men. I saw him raise man from the dead. And you know the rest of the story. When he died, and I saw him again. But what did I learn? What's the really important thing that I learnt about power? Power is being able to change people's lives for the better. That was the power of God working through Jesus in so many different ways. It wasn't a power that dominated, not like the power you're talking about. No, it was a power that included. It was a power that reached out. It was a power that held people and cared for people. It was a power, the power to step back and allow people to be themselves and have their own relationship with God, the Father, as he called him, my Father, as he called him. That's what I learned. And I think Jesus recognised that I'd learned that as well, because at one time there'd been the special four. Myself, my brother, my cousins, James and John. We seemed to go everywhere with him, but Jesus concentrated on James and John and Simon. He left me to do what he knew I felt I should be doing, acting as an enabler. You've heard the story of the loaves and the fishes. You've probably heard the story of the Greeks coming to see him in that last fateful week. I was a sort of go-between. I helped other people to come to Jesus, and then I learned to step back, to step right back and allow God to take over. And that's what power is about. It's the power of the knowledge that God is at work and that you have a certain thing to do for him, and when it's done, you step back. I'm not your leader. Oh, I know you think I am, but I'm not. I'm just a signpost on God's road with you. You've come to me, you've seen the direction, and now it's time to move on. Now it's time to leave me behind as you leave a signpost on the road. Now it's a time to carry on with God, to walk with God, to see what God has in store for you, to learn, to be a true disciple, to learn to go forward, to learn when to step forward, and to learn when to fall back and step back and let God work. So go now. Go now with my blessing and with God's blessing. Go now. That's Andrew's story. I wonder what you think about power. What do you think is the most powerful thing Jesus ever did? What do you think we can learn about how Jesus used power for the good of others?